Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the class. Yesterday, we were discussing about the geopolitics. I told you that geopolitics is the politics which involves geography. When politics is based on the resources, then it is called resource geopolitics. And in the world politics, we are aware that anyone who is yielding influence, who has the influence, will be able to achieve everything. And in the matters of resources, also, the powerful countries, the superpowers, or the big powers are in the position to control the resources of various countries, the important resources, and the most important resources about which we were talking, that was oil. And because of this resource, various countries, especially the superpowers, during the Cold War era, what happened? They wanted to control those countries which have resources, which have oil resources. And in order to control these countries, what they did, they established their friendly government in those countries. And they thought that by these friendly government, they will be able to use the resources of these countries. And that actually happened. And many times there was conflict, there was war among different countries because of this oil. And this is the reason. Tomorrow also I told you that this is a very important statement. And many times this statement is there in your question paper, and you are asked to uh, explain the statement. This is the history of petroleum is also the history of war and struggle, because petroleum is the one of the most important resources of modern times. And any country which has uh, influence in the world politics, any big power or uh, superpower wants to have control over these resources. And in order to control the resources, what is required? There is need to control the country. And for that, they were involved in war. So what we see in the our past experiences, uh, we have seen in the past experiences that the countries which are forming the Middle East, or we can say that is West Asia, the Gulf region, these countries actually accounts for about 30% of global oil production. Whatever global oil production is taking place, 30% of that production is done from Gulf region. But what is more important? The more important data is this, that 64% of the planet's known reserves is in this region only. So this region becomes very much important, because these are the two facts, two data. The Gulf region, West Asia, especially the Gulf region. These are the countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Iran. All these countries form this Kuwait. Okay, so West Asia, especially the Gulf region, accounts for about 30% of the total global oil production, but it has about 64% of the planet's known reserve. So it is considered that we know that there is always a demand for petroleum is ever increasing, and it is not going to decrease in the future also. So this area becomes very much important. And because of this importance, what happens that the um, important countries wants to have control over them, and these regions become the battlefield. You must have heard many times the news come that there is a war-like situation. There is war in the countries of West Asia. So these are the problems which are created only because of oil reserves. Okay, so we can see Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is uh, has a quarter of the world's total reserve. Whatever reserve in the world, one fourth part is there in the Saudi Arabia, and is the single largest producer. Iraq's known reserve are second only to Saudi Arabia. So other than Iraq, Saudi Arabia, the second position is Iraq. And since substantial portion of Iraqi territory are yet to be fully explored, there is a fair chance that actual reserves might be far larger, because there are many areas which are not exploited. We are not knowing about the actual condition of oil reserve in Iraq. So, what is the consequence of this type of situation? The natural consequence is that the United States, America, or and other European countries, Japan wants to not Japan, the America, especially America, wants to have control over Iraq, so that it can have control over the oil reserve also. So this is the situation of this is geopolitics. Okay, so mm, another important resource which constitute this geopolitics is water. And at present, we are seeing the situation which is arose because of water crisis is of great problem. And with water, what is associated? River is the most important source of water. So we see that water is a river is something which is shared by different countries, and because of this, um, there arose a conflict among countries for river, because some countries which are in the downstream, what happens that the countries which are in the upstream, they make dams on the river, or they pollute the river. So what will be the consequence if they are making dam in the upstream? Then what will happen that there will be very less water in the downstream. Okay, and if they are polluting the water in the upstream, then the water quality of water will become very bad for the people who are using it in the downstream. So wherever there is a river between the two countries, it becomes a cause of contention, cause of conflict between those two countries. Many times, the states used force to protect or seize fresh water resources. So there is a many examples of violence. For example, Israel, Syria, and Jordan. There was violence in 1950s and 1960s because all the sides wanted to divert water from the two rivers, the Jordan and Yarmouk. Two rivers were there, and for these two rivers, there were fight between the three countries: Israel, Syria, and Jordan. So there is also many other examples also. For example, Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, they are fighting over the Euphrates River. So if we see in our country also, we find that we have Indus River is there, which is a cause of conflict between India and Pakistan. And though now treaties has been done with the help of World Bank, and now there is agreement between the sharing of the water, and peace is there. One another point of contention between one important point of conflict between India and Bangladesh is the sharing of the river Ganga. Bangladesh opposes the construction of barrage in Farakka by India, and so many problems arose because of this sharing of river water. So there is examples are so many, and we find that water is such an important resource for us, and the world is facing so much scarcity of water that many times it is said that if the world goes for third world war, it will be for water only. And really we can see that in the summer seasons there is people starts fighting for water. So this is the situation. This is also one of the examples of geopolitics. Now we will discuss about indigenous people. Okay, indigenous people are those people who are the original people. What happens that uh, any country has some original people who used to live in forest, and we call them tribals, who used to live in forest. There all the needs were satisfied with the forest. Then what happened that civilization started, and people started coming from different places to that place, and with the change in time many of the original people have started to lead a new life. They started to live a modern life, and but all of them have not left their original lives. These original people are called indigenous people. You can see that what UN defines, how UN defines indigenous population. I am underlining this. The UN defines indigenous population as comprising the descendants of people who inhabited the present territory of a country at the time when persons of a different culture or ethnic origin arrived there from other parts of the world and overcame them. So indigenous means जो देसी हैं, जो original हैं. Okay, they are the original people, and other people have come from the other parts of the world, and these other people uh, snatched their resources, snatched their rights, and they are causing a lot of trouble for these indigenous people. So in all the countries these indigenous people are living, they are they live more in conformity with their particular social, economic, and cultural customs and tradition than the institutions of the country which they now form a part. So these people uh, love to be original. They don't accept changes. They are completely satisfied with their system which is existing there from the past. So they live more in conformity with their social, economic, and cultural customs. They follow, they are adopting their customs, they are following their tradition, and they are not very much willing to follow the institution of the country. So these are indigenous people. In the world, if we see that approximately 30 crore indigenous people spread throughout the world. So what is the number of the indigenous people? It is all about the whole world. 30 crore indigenous people spread throughout the world, and all these people, though they are living in different countries, but all these people are facing same kind of situation, same kind of problems. So we will discuss about all these things. If we see separately, we see that there are 20 lakh indigenous people of Cordillera region of the Philippines, 10 lakh Mapuche people of Chile, 6 lakh tribal people of Chittagong Hill Tracts in Bangladesh, 35 lakh North American natives, 50,000 Kuna living east of Panama Canal, and 10 lakh small people of the Soviet North. So, uh, in this way, we find that they are scattered all over the world, and still, though they are not living at the same place, they are having the same type of problem. And in order to solve these problems, these indigenous people uh, have taken the path of social movement. Okay, so the indigenous people, they want, what are their demands? They want that their community should be treated equally. There should not be any kind of discrimination. These people occupy areas in Central and South America, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. Okay, so these are the places, major places where these indigenous people used to live. In India, these people are known as tribals. We are using the word tribal. There are so many tribals: Munda, Gond, Santhal. Okay, so these are the places where these indigenous people are living. So many of the present day island states, there are many island states which are inhabited by the Polynesian, Melanesian, and Micronesian people over the course of thousands of years. These are the tribal peoples' particular name: Polynesian, Melanesian, and Micronesian people, who are living in the island states in the Oceania region. They want that the government, they appeal the government to come to terms with the continuing existence of indigenous nation as enduring communities with the identity of their own. What happens that these people are considered as an obstruction in the path of development, and their needs, their interests are not taken into consideration by the government. And so they want that they must have uh, their own identity. Okay, the land which was belonging to them, now those land has been occupied by other people. Okay, so they know that the land which has been occupied by other people, that land is originally belonging to them. And so they use the phrase since time immemorial, since time immemorial. The worldview of indigenous societies are strikingly similar with respect to land and the variety of life systems supported by it. they are living at different places, but the view of the indigenous society is same. They consider that their land has been snatched from them, and because of snatching of that land, they have also deprived of the economic resources, because land is not simply land, it is a source of economy also for them, but they have lost all these things because of development and modernization. So now, in the absence of these economic resources, their existence has come into danger. So, what is the need that they want their uh, right over the land, that their land should not be snatched from them. So, there is need of enactment by the government uh, regarding this matter. In India, we have scheduled caste, and this scheduled tribes, ST. These are the original people, and it is almost 8% of the population of the country. And most indigenous peoples in India depend for their subsistence primarily on cultivation of land. They are the farmers. They cultivate the land, and some of them also do hunting and gathering. So actually, they are living in the primitive time only. Some are hunters, some are gatherers, but many of them, most of them are cultivators on the cultivation of land. So when there was before the British rule started in India, these original people were very powerful. They were powerful not only in regard of economy, because they were the owner of the vast land. All the land belonged to them only, and not only economically they were powerful, but they were powerful politically also. No, the powerful kings like so many powerful kings were there: Asoka, Chandragupta, Samudragupta. All these powerful kings never they attacked the area of the tribals, because they also give them a huge respect, because they were considered as they have complete knowledge of the forest. Whenever the king was in the need of any kind of uh, mm, knowledge of forest, it took the help of these tribal kings, and they have their own government. They have a parallel government. They were never under the rule of the kings. So they were holding a very high respectable position economically, socially, and politically. But after the coming of British rule, what happens that their condition become very bad. And what was the reason behind this? Because British came to India only for the purpose of exploiting its resources, and they found that India has a very rich resource of forest resource, and they wanted what they wanted, that all the land should be measured, and they wanted revenue from all the cultivated land. And the tribals were not and they didn't wanted to be in control of British, but British wanted to control them. They snatched their land, they snatched their forest reserve from forest resource from them, because there was a forest policy was adopted by the British. Forests were categorized. There was a reserved forest in which no one was allowed, even the tribals, which was who were the owners of the forest area, they were removed from that place. So this type of problems arose with the advent of the British colonial rule. But after independence, our constitution has uh, done has given some safeguards to the scheduled tribes ST, and but what we find that their condition is not said to be beneficial. Um, they have to pay a huge cost of development because whatever development is done by the government, that development is done at the cost of tribals, because development and dams, we have discussed earlier also. Narmada Bachao movement was one of the point about which we have discussed. So dams and developments are considered as complementary to each other. We cannot think of development without construction of dams, and this construction of dams has caused a lot of trouble for the tribals, because it causes displacement, and displacement causes lot of hardship, not only economic hardship, but social, cultural, all type of hardship are faced by them. So we see that if we consider the matter of our country, or we consider the international scenario, everywhere the issues which are related to the rights of indigenous communities, it has not given proper importance. It has been neglected. The government is not paying that much attention to this problem that is required. So, from 1970s, we find that there is a growing international contacts among indigenous leaders from around the world. Now they are contacting with each other, because they are knowing that they are not the only people in the whole world. There are many people who are like them, who are facing the same type of problem. So now they are organizing themselves, and they are asking, they are struggling for their rights. So the because awareness has come in them also. In this direction, we see that the World Council of Indigenous People was formed in 1975. This is important. The World Council of Indigenous Peoples was formed in 1975. The council became the first of 11 indigenous NGOs to receive consultative status in the UN. So there are 11 NGOs which are related to the indigenous people. These 11 indigenous NGOs has received consultative status in the UN. It is considered that the UN must consult these NGOs by in taking major decisions which can affect them. So now we can say that there are indigenous people all over the world. They have faced many problems, though they are spread in various parts of the country. They are facing the same type of problems, and now they have become aware. Though many countries, constitution of many countries has made some provisions for them, but their condition is not improving, and they are facing a lot of problem. But now there is awareness among them, and now they have started to organize themselves. And the most important example, the glaring example, is World Council of Indigenous People. It was formed in 1975. It was the first of its kind, and after that there were so many this type of non-governmental organizations came into existence. So this is all about your chapter. Now we will discuss the cartoons and pictures of this chapter in the next class. Today our class is over now.